We'll walk hand in hand. 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 Someday, someday. Oh, live in my heart. I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, live in my home. I do believe we shall overcome someday. And the most important verse was the one they made up in Montgomery, Alabama. Said, we are not afraid. There's a lot of people in this world, they know what's right and what's wrong, but they're not going to do anything about it. And somebody has to be willing to sing, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. Today, oh, in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Thank you so much for your kind participation and kind attention. On behalf of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming and Swadhyay Sahchak Circle for Co-Learning and Mutual Study, I welcome you, all of you respected friends, participants, viewers, both on Facebook platform and Zoom platform, to this Swadhyay Sahchak dialogue, which topic is creative transformations, new horizons of process, spirituality, and peace. It is a great pleasure and indeed an honor to have available to us distinguished guests and speakers. I would like to invite, and I'm honored to invite, Father Dr. Skaria Kholur from Kannur, Kerala, and all the friends who are present here. I welcome moderator of today's session, Professor Anand Kumar Giri. I welcome Gyan Gului, Sangeeta ji, Menti Pradhan ji, and all our friends who are present here. Father Dr. Skaria Kholur has a deep sadhana of making world, having love of harmony and peace. He works, and at the same time, he teaches us to how to live in a world which is religiously how to promote some of the important values of human civilizations, particularly peace in the society, and how religion and peace work together in the very foundation of society. These are the very important ideas which we need to inculcate in this world. So today's topic is very important. That is creative transformations, new horizons of process, spirituality, and peace. Today, we are trying to discuss this topic because we are suffering from religious fundamentalism, and all our society, be it in East and West, because of politicization, religion has become the instrument of disorganization of society. Let me also give a brief introduction of our Swadhyay Sachak circle. Swadhyay Sachak is a circle of co-learning and mutual studies. It is an initiative of studying and learning together self, culture, societies, and the world. Friends associated with this are eager to walk and mediate with new horizons of thinking and new movements of social and cultural change at work in our contemporary world. We study Sri Aurobindo, Mahatma Gandhi, Chitranjan Das, and many others important intellectuals from the world whose writings nurtured the threat of civilization of today's time, particularly peace, justice, love. So we invite people from different fields of life to share their life's vision and sadhana almost every week every week on Sunday and sometimes on Wednesday. And we are having collaborations with different university and institutions. And we would like to invite you to be our co-nurturer in the very process of learning and understanding the world. So with this brief introduction, may I like to invite Professor Anand Kumar Giri, who is our mentor, to kindly offer a brief introduction of today's session. So, Professor Giri, over to you.
Thank you so much, dear Randeep, and thank you, Father Kalur, and all friends co-present. So it is a joy to have Father Kalur with us and to learn with him about this topic, creative transformation, which is also the title of his book, Creative Transformation. And this book, which grows out of his doctoral work, it discusses process philosophy of Whitehead and also process theology of a great theologian, John Cobb. And I present a paragraph from his book where he's presenting the work of John Cobb and vis-a-vis creative transformation as the basis of hope. Father Kalur writes, in his understanding and interpretation of hope, Cobb was to some extent influenced by Ernest Bloch's idea that the unrealized possibilities of the future exerts more influence upon the present action than the efficient cognition of the past. Cobb states what man is and what his righteousness may be are determined from the future rather than from the past or present. Cobb also tells us that the unrealized possibilities demand an explanation rather than mere assertion, and this explanation points to the creativity of God. So therefore, the unrealized possibility in the present, and these possibilities carry signature of the blessings as well as work of God and divine. Traditionally, Christian thinking placed the basis of hope in the belief of an omnipotent power of God. In reference to this faith in an omnipotent and powerful God, Cope says, I will not rehearse the problems to which that foundation gives rise to. Process thinking conceives of God's action in the world differently. Cobb claims, we believe that in every situation, God works to bring forth the best outcome that is possible. Without this belief in a process or power greater than ourselves working for the good, events might at times make us optimistic, but it would not be possible to have hope. So therefore, this process thinking, process theology, which also is part of process spirituality. Now, this is very important for peace because peace is not just an event, peace is also a process. And peace as a process is related to both social conditions as well as soul conditions. Peace studies scholar Johann Galtung has spoken about structural violence and also structural peace. We need to also talk about soulful peace and soulful non-violence. Now, Father Kalur also has been working on the practical issue of peace, conflict transformation, and working on the very difficult condition of political violence in Kerala. And how do we really sit together with people who are victims of political violence? During my last visit, our meeting, Father Kalur brought me to the house of a widow whose husband was brutally murdered when he was driving his bus. And to add to that brutality, her son was also brutally murdered. Just think about it. And we are living in contemporary society, and people, the killers themselves, so they go to jail, and when they come back to community, they're welcomed, as it happened with the murderers who were released in Gujarat. We have all read about it, to the great anguish and sadness and anger of our hearts. So it is in this condition to cultivate peace, and we look forward to learning with and from Father Kalur. And we also remember that just after 2 days, September 21 is also the International Day of Peace. So from our Swadhyaya Sahachakra and Vishwaneedam Center, it is our humble journey with the International Day of Peace to have this discussion this evening. So Father Kalur, please.
Thank you, Giri, and thank you, Randhir, for these beautiful words. And good evening to everyone who is listening to me. I'm really surprised to see Giri reading from my book. It is a great honor for me indeed. And today, what's the time frame we have, Giri? Hello?
It's 30 minutes, all right for you?
Oh, 30 minutes, yes, fine.
Or you need more time, Father?
No. If 30 minutes more than enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are, no, you have put us into the right perspective. The context is quite clear that we are in a very, very difficult, painful situation at every level. Now, in this context, we are thinking about, or we are reflecting on this theme of peace, process, spirituality, and creative transformation. So I don't know how many of you may be familiar, like Professor Giri, you must be well versed in process thought. It's a philosophy, but since others may not be, so I would just introduce first process philosophy, a few basic concepts, and then proceed to how it can be applied to spirituality and to peace. You know, every era has its own philosophy and its way of thinking. And that really puts the foundation for whether political action, religious thinking, or day-to-day living. So, you know, as the philosophy changes, now, when you look into the history of philosophy, you'll find always a philosophical change makes a huge change in the society. The moment you talk about Sartre and all this, and the later on deconstruction, the society had its tremendous impact. So, what type of philosophy you adopt, that will really put a foundation for our society, for our thinking. Mahatma Ji took a philosophical framework which is very inclusive, so that he was able to make a huge change in the society. He was able to put that into action, and that made India a unifying country. Now, today, therefore, I said, for my first point, what type of philosophy do we accept? That will determine our action and our thinking and our behavior and our politics. So I was in my search for, when I was doing my philosophy, my theological studies in Rome and in the US, I was looking for an inclusive type of thing, an inclusive type of spirituality. It is that actually led me to this process thought. A friend of mine, because I went with a project to study my doctorate in theology that they did not accept it. Then I had to change that, and by the grace of God, I came to this process thought. Now, process philosophy is a philosophy developed by Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead, an English metaphysician, and who later went to America and then settled there. I'm not going to all the details of process philosophy, but only two important concepts. What is meaning of process? So process thought upholds and affirms that process is fundamental. You know, the famous saying of Heraclitus, who says that the observation that one can never step twice into the same river, which means things are changing. In other words, change is fundamental. In philosophical circles, we talk about being, but being is a static concept. But process thought would say being is through becoming. It is in and through becoming that a being gets shaped. For example, it applied to our own self. A individual is a being. For example, me is Kariyakalar. My being is not a static reality that as I was born. It undergoes changes, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. So, we undergo changes at different levels and continuously. And that is the big finding of this process thought. In simple terms, being of an entity is constituted by its becoming. This is the foundational concept of process. The process of becoming is more fundamental than the being that is achieved. Hence, to be actual and to be real is to be in a process. So normally we understand something static, unchanging is reality, but process thought say the other way. A distinctive character of this process is the becoming of entities or events in time. Another added to this is that the things are happenings. Reality is happening in time and in space. There's a constant replacements of events one after another in a series. For example, I can just give you an example. Now we are in a particular event called by Giri. Just previous to this, we were maybe in a bedroom, in a washroom, sitting or eating. And now that event is now changed to this particular event. Now this will give way for another event. So there is a constant replacement of events, but it is not a division of events. I think this is one thing, but that we need to keep in our mind, in your understanding of process thought. They call it, best example would be a film. Now, when you're watching a film, what do you see? One story is going and a continuous story is being played. But we know it composes of every small frameworks. So this film has several frameworks. It puts together, but the real story unfolds at certain events at a later maybe. Therefore, the process thought would say every event is important. There is no bigger and small. I mean, events gradation is there, but at the same time, every event, you cannot just ignore one event. It has tremendous implication for us in our pluralistic society. One major event cannot simply ignore, because this is essentially continuously related with the past event in our personal life, in the social life, in the world. So this event way of understanding can be applied to every level, cosmic level, universal level. So everything is very much in a process. So it means that within each event, the bits of event of which the event is composed of appear, actualize, and receive. This is another point. In an event, something appears from the past and it actualizes and then it recedes back. For example, right now we are in an event of this conference. After this 9:30, this event recedes to the past, but it continues to exert its influence in our thoughts, in the paperwork, in the project of Professor Giri. So it is a continuous. At the same time, there is a finishing of an event, but it continues to exert. So past, present, and future are so interrelated. So therefore, we goes to the next thought of process, that namely radical relatedness. So along with this, I mean, as I said, one event is essentially related to the other. So essential relatedness, such essential relatedness means that each event in the universe influences the subsequent events. It is through relatedness that reality becomes. The nature of this relation is not just arbitrary, but fundamental. We are all related to one another at a very deep-rooted level, not just external. So actual entities arise, so I said, in an event, it becomes and reaches to completion, and it recedes, but it continues to exert its influence. So after the actualization, they are in the past, but still continue to influence the present due to the essential relatedness of a past event to the present event. Just for example, in our life, take one example. Maybe you make a blunder or a mistake or a grave, someone murders someone or such a tragic event. Unit continues to exert its influence on other surroundings. So every event has a power, a field of power, and that exerts the other realities. Events evolve as multiplicity of relations and gets into a frame of this particular event or that particular event through the interaction and unification of relations. This process should not be understood as something exists first and then. So it is in and through this relationship that reality becomes. So relatedness is fundamental. So process first, and things happen through events, and then second, it is radically related. So these are the two key visions I just want to say of this process thought. One is process, things are in a process. And then secondly, it is radically related. So this vision is the best attitude for the modern trends of alienation, estrangement, and provides space for a unified vision. In our society, we think that I can exist, I can survive. In today's, especially in today's world of worldwide WWW and communication, what something happens somewhere, it affects automatically us. So we need to be concerned. For example, think about this horrible war happening in Europe, and they never thought there would be a war in Europe. It was a shocking thing. Now, what next? Now we all are paying a price of that war. Physically, we may not be affected by that, but in reality, we are affected. We are paying a huge price for our petrol, gas, etc. And then, for example, in Europe, they are all paying the price. Not only that, that is a physical level. At a moral level, think about the impact this war has. We thought that humanity is progressing, there will not be war. But this tragedy of human faces that you find in the TV is a disturbing reality for a human being who is really concerned about. So it creates a problem for me psychologically, mentally, and it disrupts also the world peace. So that is what we said. The radical relatedness is all the more experienced today. So this comes more in tune with the, okay, now, so theology has to be, we would say, in a more related manner. Spirituality has to be understood in this manner. So it is true that the way one is related with his neighbor, either merits or demerits his place with the God. In other words, it is his relatedness that determines the quality of one's being. Now, this is an important point for spirituality. Now I'm moving from philosophy to spirituality. Now, this way of a philosophical framework helps us very much in our understanding of spirituality, which will really help us in our understanding of peace. Now, Cobb applies this spirituality, this philosophy to the understanding of, namely, this Buddhism and Christianity. In this Buddhistic and Christian notion, he applies this very clearly. And then he says, in understanding this reality of religion, you try to understand applying this principle of constant transformation, and which we call it a creative transformation. We are constantly being transformed, and that change should reflect also in my spirituality. And we need to apply that sense of, and this is what he calls the creative transformation. It involves a real transformation of the self. Reflection on love reminds us that the genuine expression of love cannot but involve empathy. Now, in this application of this process thought into spirituality, he calls it a creative transformation. Wherever changes are happening, this has to be it has to be a productive way. For that, I need to get involved in a positive way with the other reality. Now, Mahatma Gandhi was a visionary, or one who applied this, I would say, through this, he was very much based, and he was very much formed by the Jainist philosophy of Anekantavada. There are several shades for a reality, possibility of several shades for a reality. And this, if we apply, and this is somewhat a similar, the process thought comes very much there. It is an inclusive approach. Now here, applying this thought to religion. 1 minute. So coming to applying this to spirituality, Buddhism and Christianity, a positive appropriation of values of our other faiths. So Cobb would say, in our dealing with the religions, we need a creative or transformed approach, basically because we are in a process. Secondly, we are radically related. Now, where to find this radical relatedness? That has to be found in our approach to other religions. So when we understand, so here Cobb makes a very transformed understanding of his key figure, Christ. Christ is not understood in a historical sense. Christ is understood in a creative, transformed way as a source of transformation. So that demands more than a toleration of a conviction of other. It is an acceptance. It calls for a personal appropriation of other traditions and includes the possibility of being radically transformed by the diverse ways through which others live, which means my openness, or when I understand my God, the concept of my God, when I understand my image of God as transforming reality, both me and my society, I think that's the most fundamental thing about God. God is not an idol. God is not concepts. God is much more, as Cobb would say, God offers possibilities, and it is a constant call for transformation at every level, not only from my sinfulness. It also calls for a transformation in my concepts, in my approaches, in my philosophical thinking. Then only we see really the application of transformation completes. It calls for so when I encounter another religious doctrine, for example, Cobb makes a comparison between the Buddhist tradition and the Christian tradition. Very interestingly, the understanding of praditya samutpada or interdependent origination, which calls, that means my existence and my freedom is not an exclusive existence. It is not an totally independent, but we are interdependent. So it calls for a personal. So when I look at other traditions, I'm not looking at as something opposed, as something over and against me. This is a problem with this either or position of this Western thought. No, either this or that. When you take a inclusive approach, hello, Professor Giri, hello.
I'm listening here. I'm listening.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So it calls, I thought things are gone. So it calls for a personal appropriation of other traditions and includes the possibility of being radically transformed by the diverse ways through others' life. That means it calls for a transformation of my own self, not only from within me, but also being the possibility of being transformed by other traditions. For example, seeing a good genuine spiritual element in a Hindu tradition, it demands a Christian to be transformed. So this, what Panikkar would say, mutual fecundation. Now one is complementarity. So it is, it in no way cuts. So that's another point. What we need to keep. It is not in no way cuts off from one's own tradition, but what is envisioned is an openness to the otherness while remaining rooted in one's own tradition. This is a very key point, I think, we need to make in our interaction with the religions. No, always we hear all religions are not equal. I mean, there's a wonderful statement, but think about Gandhi. Gandhi says, I am an Sanatan Hindu. My identity is affirmed, but it is not an offensive identity. It is not a firewalled identity, but it is an open identity. This is what process thought also is calling. Get rooted in your own self, then you will reach a foundation where everything is similar, where things shares the same energy. When you go deeper, I think the problem of our age or situation is that why people fight on religion, because you are remaining at a very superficial peripheral level. For example, Professor Anandagiri and me, if we live for centuries, we will not fight because we share the same type of thinking. We have the same type of a mystical feeling. So once you go deeper, that's an important element. So basing on this principle, two concrete expressions are highlighted by Professor Cobb, namely that of, as I said, one is independent origination of dependent, that is Praditya Samutpada in Buddhism, they call it dependent origination. Also, it comes very much closer to this kenotic view of the Christian thought, where the genuine love is not holding on to your own identity, but your genuineness comes out, your authenticity comes out in your breaking of yourself. For example, in the gospel, Jesus says, unless a wheat grain breaks itself and it gets destroyed, it doesn't give life. Unless I break myself and get destroyed. And that is what we call the kenotic dimension of the love of Christ, where he sacrificed himself. Kenosis, total dedication. And this sort of a total dedication is the foundational principle of this creative transformation, which means I'm willing to be transformed, and my willingness also helps other gets to be transformed. So there is no clash, there is no conflict, but all the more a chance for a mutual transformation. And that mutual transformation will lead to a greater creative transformation. So this is, I think, what I want to just highlight in a summary way. Okay, these are the few, I think, time. I did not check the time. So I was a bit fast. I don't know if I can, I'm interested, I'm willing for a discussion. Okay. I think more than this, people won't be listening.
Okay. So thank you so much, Father, and for your deep thinking. So you touched many important aspects, and especially the Anekantavada in Jainism. And the Anekanta also,
Oh, just excuse me, I couldn't conclude. So, I mean, we are talking about the piece, so the final part.
yeah,
So yes, yeah, I'll conclude with that. No, the Hans Küng made if the statement, I mean, unless the religions reach a harmonious, peaceful situation, the world will never experience peace. So way for peace, I would say, is to adopt this sort of a thinking and then apply the spirituality to every situation. We need a certain element of humility and openness and rootedness. Rootedness, simplicity, and non-violence and peace. So to guarantee peace, we need an approach. We need to adopt this creative, transformative attitude towards religion. Okay.
thank you, Father. Now, you mentioned about Anekantavada. Now, I wonder if there has been dialogue between Whitehead's process philosophy and the vision and practice of Anekantavada.
So there has never been. For Job, Cobb was making only, I mean, he was very much getting involved with the Buddhism. He could not pay much attention to other things, but I find we could develop that.
Yes, I think that is a very important. So thank you. Now, dear friends, let us join with Father and bring our thoughts, questions, and conversations, please. So I invite friends to kindly raise your hands or share your thoughts. And Father, I request you to please take note of observations,
Yeah,
and
sure.
you can
Yeah,
kindly come at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end. Okay, as friends are thinking now, Sangeeta, let me invite you for some of your thoughts and reflections.
Yes, sir. Father, thank you for the enriching session. It was very interesting to listen. I just have one question actually. It's more of a general observation. Could you give a case where you have seen this in action around you, maybe successfully being done?
Okay. Should I answer immediately or later? I'll
Sure,
take
please.
note and then
Later is
later.
also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have noted.
And
Thank you.
Gyan Luigi, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope I am audible.
Yes, and you can
Yeah.
also introduce yourself. Now, Father Kalu, Gyan Luigi is a dear friend and a thoughtful philosopher. He also works on hope, on Moltmann and Gandhi and Plato.
Good, great.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, Gyan, please.
thank you very much. It was really very interesting. I was thinking about the being related of us, of individuals. I was thinking at some passages of Gandhi's meditation on Gita, for instance, when Gandhi